So today, every guest we have is very special, but more than anything, this is a little bit more of a personal, personal happy thing that gets me really excited because I got to play for this man who is widely regarded as one of the most respected college soccer coaches in all of California. When you think about it, there are some tenures that have been around. UCSD, we have Brian McManus and Derek Armstrong. We had the great Steve Negoesco at USF. And in the world of soccer in Northern California, this name is synonymous with the game. And we're talking about Coach Marcus Ziemer from Sonoma State University. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. So let's talk a little bit about who introduced you to the game. How old were you? Do you remember your first team? And when did you fall in love with it?
Yeah. Well, I started playing when I was 8 years old. Soccer wasn't super big in Sonoma County at that time. My dad was actually born in Germany, and his mom was Jewish, and he fled Germany right before the war, ended up in England.
Wow.
Got sent to the country. His mom stayed in London and worked, and he got sent to the country, and he remembers playing soccer there all the time. Then he ended up in the East Coast in New York, and there wasn't a lot of soccer. He remembers playing one against the whole class, just dribbling around. So that's kind of a background to it. So he lost contact with soccer, but then when I was 8, he asked me if I wanted to sign up for soccer, and I'd never heard of it before. And I was thinking like soccer, sock. Yeah. It was like, what is this? But I was on a team. I still remember my first coach, Mike Dawson. He was like late teens, early 20s. Had played, and we had a really good team. But unfortunately, I got put in the goal, which I hated. We were on a really good team. I never touched the ball. But I ended up really falling in love with the sport, and then my dad was a teacher, and he recognized early on that this was a sport like they say it's the most democratic of all sports because
Wow.
in basketball, well, you can be any size, speed to play. There's all kinds of in basketball. I mean, let's be honest. If you're not super tall, I mean, there's occasionally a 6-footer that makes it, but most in football you have to be a freak athlete. In baseball you have to have that hand-eye coordination, and soccer is a sport where if you work hard enough and you really get after it, you can play. There's been a lot of slow, like the greatest players of all time that are small and slow. Look at the current player, Messi. He's 5'5", 5'6", super quick, but which helps. But
5'5", 5'6".
Yeah, exactly. So he encouraged us. I have 3 brothers to play a lot. We trained all the time. We had a little soccer field in our backyard, and we used to play for hours and hours. 2 against 2, play against the wall, just play. So his goal was for all of us to play in college, which we all did, and we're all still currently working the game. So that's where I kind of got my start.
So you moved 8 years old, fall in love with the game, didn't fall in love with being a goalkeeper, which
no.
So where did you go to high school?
I went to high school in Sebastopol at Annalee High School, and my dad actually started the first league in Sebastopol, and he there was programs up along the 101 corridor, like Santa Rosa, Petaluma, Marin had programs, but he helped start leagues in the kind of outlying area like Healdsburg, Ukiah, Sonoma, Napa, Sebastopol. So he helped in 1977. He helped start the first high school team at soccer team. There's no high school soccer in Sebastopol. So, and I actually scored the first goal in high school history.
Did you really?
I did. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so great!
We lost to St. Vincent's, if you can believe that. It shows you how we were really new. Right. But he started a team of under 16s for me And when I first went to school, I went to Gramercy elementary or junior high school, and I love soccer, so I brought my ball. And a lot of people have never even heard of soccer, so we started juggling, and it turned into from 7th, 8th grade, where we'd play every recess, like until after the bell. The next goal wins, show up to class sweaty, and that group of players became an under 16 team that we started, and then became the first high school team. So little history there. So
this is why I love doing these interviews, because you get all these just pieces of gold. I mean, I never knew you scored the first goal at Annalee High School. That's talk about opening up the account, literally.
There you go. There you go. And the thing about it, just a little aside, now everybody plays soccer. I mean, even, a lot of kids play when they're young, and then it's a good entryway into other sports because of the footwork and everything. But back then we were called commies and bad words I can't say right now. And,
right.
It was a commie sport, and there was a lot of resistance, but we were like punks. We were like, it was our badge of honor that we were footballers. And like when we got into high school and college, we all had English football haircuts, like, basically a mullet. But it was like a big deal. It really meant it was a unified group. And you talk about with guys that started playing back in the day, and it was a lot different back then. Now it's just accepted. Soccer is just the world sport. So
yeah. So back then it was the misfits that had the badge of honor, that you guys had chips on your shoulders, and it's really great and refreshing to hear, because I do the intro, and your family is so embedded and so well known, the Ziemer name in Sonoma County, and to hear about literally the seed that was planted back then, and it's grown so much. It must be, you must be so proud to be part of that heritage.
Oh, for sure. My dad, who passed away a year and a half ago, I mean, he did so much for the game, and certainly proud of him and the legacy that he left.
So there you are, Annalee High School, scored the first goal. How do you end up getting to Sonoma State and playing soccer there?
Well, I was a good player, and really serious about it. And then my senior year, about 3 or 4 games in the season, I got tackled and I tore ligaments in my ankle. So I was out for basically I came back my last game and hobbled around just to play in league in my senior year, but I couldn't really do much. And during that time, I kind of not being able to play, and started to get some different interests and things for a bit, and maybe kind of got distracted a little bit. We'll just say that. And then I got back, and I got my love back and playing everything. And I went to the junior college, Santa Rosa Junior College, played for Craig Butcher, who he played there as well. And I had a decent career at the JC. I mean, I was a good player, but I wasn't as focused as I needed to be. And then the head coach at Sonoma State, Peter Renault, came and watched me play, and he's a massive influence on myself and my brothers and Sonoma County soccer. His dad was an ambassador of Brazil from England, so he grew up in Brazil for a lot of years, and then he was an athletic trainer for the Edmonton Drillers and the old NASL. Worked with like Johan Cruyff, and he really high level. So he came into Sonoma County, and we thought we knew football, and he brought it to whole new levels and intensity and just his knowledge of the game. So basically, he recruited me and just said, you're a much better player than you're playing, and when it comes to Sonoma State, you're gonna, I'm gonna bust your ass, and you're gonna have a great career. So I went there, and he really worked to get me fit, and I was the captain, and ended up all conference a couple of years, and we weren't very good back then. We played really good football. We were well coached, and we kept the ball, and we built up, and we were a little bit ahead of our time in some ways, so that's how I ended up there as a player, and then I moved. My brothers played. 2 of them were got a scholarship to Fresno State, and they redshirted Fresno State back when they had soccer. And then one of them played 1 year. But I had 3 classes left to graduate from Sonoma State, and my dad suggested, "Hey, why don't you move down to Fresno and help the boys, and you can be around Division I programs." So I moved down there and finished my classes, transferred back, and graduated from Sonoma State. But I stayed there for 2 years. And played at a very high level on an incredible team. We men's team, semi-pro team,
Wow.
President International. And then I came back. Craig Butcher asked me to be assistant coach at San Jose Junior College. So in '88, I was assistant there, and that was a year where I missed a little bit of the preseason because when I graduated from college, classic story. My dad, when I graduated from high school, my buddies and people are getting cars and trips and all this. And I got a handshake, and he said, "Congratulations, but you should expect to graduate from high school. I mean, this is like, hey, when you graduate from college, then we'll talk."
Right.
So I actually forgot all about it, whatever. So I graduated from college, and he gave me, he paid for my A license, which I did I had already done my C and my B, my United States Soccer A license, which is a week-long course. Flew up to Evergreen College in Washington.
What year was that? What year was that?
That was in 88.
Yeah, because it said on my notes, it says that you even in '88. I don't know if this is correct. You can tell me, but you even went to England for a bit and got your English football.
Yeah, that was, and then he also gave me. I went to the English FA International course. It was a 3-week course in England, so that was the second thing he paid for. Plane flight, and everything. The course itself was like almost $3,000. And then the plane flight back then and everything. So, so he obviously a massive influence on my career. What a great graduation present that also helped me with my career. So, yeah, so that was incredible. 3 weeks in England with, there was 38 different countries, Brazil, Argentina, Holland, Germany, England, all these, Japan. I became good friends, Australia. So it was a really cool experience.
Wow. That's really cool. So then you come back to the States. How do you take over Peter Renault's job as head coach?
Well, I was at JC for 1 year, and then Peter and at the JC, it was incredible. I was making $1,000 a year, which was amazing. So Peter recruited me over to Sonoma State to be just the men's assistant. A huge raise, up to $3,000 a year.
Oh wow, you're killing it right there.
But I was only working 25, 30 hours a week. I mean, it wasn't like I was working full time. So he recruited me over there, and we actually that was in '89, and we were the team was not great. We started really poorly, and after like 6 games, he sent me on the road recruiting. So I just started going to JC games, high school games. And back then, nobody even knew what Sonoma State University was, let alone Sonoma State soccer, and we weren't anything to know about, to be honest with you. So that, and then I ended up recruiting a bunch of players, including my 3 brothers.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah,
and then former guy Dave Kaufman, Thor Anderson, you guys from from San Jose Junior College, and so. Davini was in '91. Eric Cunningham. We just brought in stud players. So we went from being like second from the bottom of the table in '89. '90, I was assistant coach. We went undefeated and won the conference and went to the playoffs in '90. And I actually, Peter coached both the men and the women at Sonoma State, and the women in '90 won the national championship.
That's right.
So the second half of the season, he was kind of focused on the women. So I was basically coaching the men. And then our first playoff game ever was in 1990 at Cal State Bakersfield. Jeremy Gunn, the Stanford coach, was on the opposing team, and we had no scholarships. They were fully funded and had a lot of internationals. And we beat them in overtime, 3-2, and knocked them off. It was amazing. I was assistant coach, but I coached the team with my buddy Yada was our assistant coach. So that, then we ended up losing Seattle Pacific 1-0 the next round. But so in the off season, Peter Renault recommended to the athletic director, we should split the programs. He'll take the women and give me the men. And that's where it all started. So,
well, it's really interesting, the timing of all that, because, I like to bring up these things called fun facts. And so one of the fun facts about Marcus, as he mentioned a little bit ago, was that he has 3 brothers that are all amazing soccer players as well. Christopher, Benjamin, and Andrew. And so 90, you get your playoff win. And then 91, you got your 3 brothers, you're the head coach, and you have a dream season, a dream run.
Yeah.
How how did you get your brothers to buy in?
Well, Christopher was the youngest. He went and played in Germany. He skipped his junior and senior year, sophomore and junior. Played in Germany. Played in the youth club over there, and so he had a lot of opportunities. Andrew actually, and all of them did, but it made sense for them to stick in the area. We had camps, a lot of soccer camps.
Mm-hmm.
So Andrew and Benjamin kind of made sense for him just to continue at Sonoma State. Andrew Santa Clara was offered Andrew a scholarship, and but they wanted to turn him into a center back, and he was a attacking player. He didn't want to do that. So, yeah, he was a striker. So it made sense. And then Christopher, it just made sense. The plan was for him to play 2 years with his brothers and then probably transfer on, and he could have, but he ended up going back to Europe for a few years and then came back and finished, like when he was a little bit older, he finished his last 2 years. So, yeah, it just made sense for, the family was together. And the 91 season, my first year as head coach, we went all the way. We lost in the national championships. We made all the way, and it was an incredible run. And those 2 years were two of the most special years because we were together every day, basically. And then my parents came to every game, and like we had a playoff game in St. Louis, and my sister flew out and came, and so it was like the whole family together for a couple of years. It was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, thinking back, that was probably some of the funnest times you've ever had as a coach.
Oh yeah, and it was big news. There was a picture on the cover of Soccer America, in the paper, because to have four brothers and play in college, one coaching and three playing, is a pretty unique story.
Oh yeah, I don't think I've ever. I mean, I think the Gray brothers. There's three of them who played at Fresno, but not
two.
Yeah.
Jason and I'm drawing blank. I just bumped into him. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, and
Jeff,
Jason
and Jeff.
It's funny working as a sports psychologist. I've been very fortunate to go to some pretty amazing athletic events in a bunch of different sports. But I had moved up to Sonoma County from San Diego, and it was 1992. I want to see if you remember this game, because out of all the Stanislaus, yeah. 92. I was a senior in high school, and the biggest show in town was Sonoma State men's soccer. So we went with our team, and we went and watched the game. Benny I think he got 2 yellows and got ejected. So you guys were playing one down, and it goes to overtime, and all of a sudden you've got the crowd chanting "Meat," and I was like, "What the heck's going on?" And Meat was a great player,
Steve
Maresca, and he comes in and starts slacking people, and then Davini got the game winner.
Yeah, I could still. Andrew, my brother, had the ball top of the box, and he faked a shot, cut it, played Davini, who hit like a 20-yard shot, went in, and then the crowd, everybody stormed the field. It was insane, and we had to win that game. That was in '91. We had to win that game to go to the playoffs, and we could. If we would have lost, we wouldn't have won the conference and got a bid and gone all the way to the national finals. So, and we came from behind, man down. We're down 3-2 with like 10 minutes left. We tied it up and then ended up winning it in the injury time. Basically, everybody stormed the field. They cleared the field, kicked off, and we won. It was amazing.
It's so amazing to me because, like I said, it's definitely in my top 5 sporting events that I've ever witnessed.
Yeah.
So, talking about getting your brothers to recruit, you're going, what is this, your 30th year head coach?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have a season, but yeah, this is my 30th season as head coach.
So there's no substitute, for experience, and you definitely have that. And so when you're looking at players to recruit, what are you looking for? What are some of the characteristics? What are any personality traits? Like, what are you looking for in a player to recruit to play for you in the state?
Yeah, part of it, we're Division II, and we don't have a ton of scholarship money. We have like 2.5 scholarships, so we have to split up. So the financial aspect, and then you have to look for the right kid. Whenever I get a new assistant coach, we'll get a Surf Cup. and he'll go out, look, and come back and say, a list of players, talk to him in between games. Oh, I like this guy, this guy, this guy. It's like UCLA, San Diego State, UC Santa Barbara, San Luis, they're already committed. Those are the obvious ones. There's obviously kids. So for my level, I'm looking for the first of all, the way we play. We want to play football. We build up. We keep the ball. So we want technical and tactical players that can handle the ball and read the game. So that's super important. And then if you look at a lot of Division I rosters, the biggest thing for them is the athletic component. Their whole roster is over 6 foot. We have a mix. I like a tall keeper. I like my center backs to be taller, a big striker, but we have a lot of smaller, quicker players that can handle the ball. So, so I'm not, the athletic component isn't, you can't be as slow. You can't be small, weak, and slow, but if you're slow, but you're really smart and you're good size, you can make up. So you have to have at least something, bring something special athletically to the table. And then one of the biggest things I've learned over the years is personality.
Tell me more about that. What are you looking for?
Yeah, I want, first of all, I want to enjoy my job. So, a guy that's a jerk, that's just an ass. I don't want to coach that guy. I want to coach people that are open, willing to learn, that are going to, put the team first. And although that having been said, I think we have a good culture, and we have for a long time. So we can bring. I've turned some guys' life around that that came in and ended up learning, developing, and end up being great fathers and workers, and have a great life. So I think if you bring in too many guys that are a problem, then you have problems. But if you have a good culture, you can bring a guy in that maybe just has grown up as a rough kid, and he comes in and can learn and develop. And so there's a balance. I think I'll take a chance on a kid or two, but they have to be good. I have to feel like they're a good kid, that they're willing to learn and be open, and they're not just jerks. So like I watch when I go watch games, I watch a kid, like how he treats his teammates. If I hate one of my, come on. It's like, what does that mean? Like, come on, let's go. I mean, it's like, that's just like whining. I'd rather have somebody say, hey, give me the ball early, something really specific and positive and moving forward, not just a whining. So I watch how they, like at halftime when the coach is talking, are they paying attention? Are they attentive? I want a student in the game, somebody who really wants to learn and get better. So I think if you look all over, even professional, the personality component has become more and more important over time. People focusing on it more.
Now you have a little bit of a interesting dynamic in your life as well. Not only have you been at the helm for so long at Sonoma State, you've got 2 daughters that are now playing Division I soccer at Texas A&M. What was the recruiting process like for you as a parent when Taylor and Tara were getting recruited? Like how did you guys land on Texas A&M?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of a roundabout story. Well, first of all, my oldest daughter, my son was a player. He was supposed to go to Cal. He ended up decided after graduating from high school he didn't want to play anymore. He was with the U17 national team and lived in residency back in Bradenton for half a year, and he lived in Europe with Dinamo Zagreb in Croatia for a year. So and the recruiting on the men's and the women's side is definitely different. There's a lot more opportunities on the women's side because there's a lot more programs. Like for example, in California, USC, Pepperdine, they don't have men's programs, but they have women's programs. Arizona State, Arizona, Washington State, Texas A&M, Texas, Florida, on and on. So there's a lot more opportunities. So my oldest daughter was in the youth national teams as well, so she had a lot of options. So I talked to a lot of my friends and colleagues that were in coaching, and kind of, because we wanted to, all 3 of my kids were good soccer players. They not just like big athletes that ran around. So they wanted to continue to learn and everything. So my oldest daughter, Taylor, actually went to University of Virginia first. She was there for 2 years. And she did really well there. She scored like 7, 8 goals as a freshman and ended up with 12, 13 goals, assists, and it was basically started all but maybe 4 or 5 games in her last few years, but in her first few years. But she wasn't thriving, and she kind of had lost her love for the game a little bit. It just wasn't a good fit for her. For whatever, the coach is a fantastic coach. He's assistant coach for the full national team, Steve Swanson, but it just wasn't a good fit. So she took a year off and went to Holland and lived with a friend of mine and played there in the Dutch First Division. It's still amateur, semi-pro there, so she was able to play and had a great experience there, and then decided to go to Texas A&M. Texas A&M was the first, when she was a young sophomore, the first school that offered her a scholarship way back when, and she visited there and really liked. She actually went to got to go to football games on the field and got a picture with Johnny Manziel and cool. Back in those days, so it was pretty wild. But so my youngest daughter visited Texas A&M and really liked it, so she decided to go there. And then Taylor, after when she left Virginia, contacted them and they were able to they had a spot for her. So after she went to Holland, she went there. So
what's harder for you, coaching Sonoma State men's soccer or watching your girls play college ball? Which one?
Yeah, they're different. They're definitely different, but it's hard, especially like my youngest daughter, Tara. Her first year, she started almost every game, and the second year, she was coming off the bench and not playing as much. So it's hard not to just get all pissed off and I'm going to call the coach. I would never do that, but that definitely made it difficult. But she scored 5 goals, had a great year, coming off the bench, and did really well. And so, but it's definitely difficult. But it's a lot of fun. So I've been able to go out. I was able to see Taylor play each year in Virginia. We had a bye one weekend, so I was able to get out. And then the second season, our season unfortunately ended. We didn't make the playoffs, so I surprised her and show up at her ACC tournament game and surprised her at the field. It was pretty cool. Oh, wow. And they got to hang out. And then I was able to go out, last year once, and then obviously this year I'm going to the senior game. They're actually playing. SEC is playing, and they're playing just conference only. So I'm going to get to go to Taylor's senior game in early November. So because unfortunately we don't have a season, so I got the time. So, but I watch all the games on TV. They're all on SEC Network.
I watch them too.
Pretty cool.
I watch them too. Yeah, it's fun. Well, a little bit more about the recruiting process. So it's really interesting. The statistics it came out in 2017, the NCAA, actually 2018, where they did a sample size of high school participants for football, basketball, men's and women's, cross country, soccer, this, that, and the other. And it was really surprising because the number comes out of that high school pool, less than 3% play D1, less than 3% play D2, and less than 3% play D3. So on that note, what age, in your expertise, in your opinion, what age should players really start thinking about, hey, I want to get to the next level? At what age would you recommend?
Well, in terms of college, playing college, I think you should be thinking about when you get into high school academically. You need to make sure you're thinking about it, and then it depends a little bit on the level play. If you're a top player, either male or female, you need to start thinking about it earlier because coaches are going to come after you. If you're visible, if you're on a top academy team or you're involved in national programs, and you're going to have a lot of pressure earlier. Although they're changing the rules to push it back later, but I think for a D2, your sophomore year, you should be definitely thinking about it, and like I recommend going and watching as many college games as you can, like in your area, or if you're with your club team and you're in San Diego, go watch UC San Diego or San Diego State play if you can. And then also now all the games are streamed online, so you should watch because you want to get a feel for, first of all, can I play at that level? Do I think I can play at that level? Do they play the kind of soccer that I'll do well in? Like, for example, if you're a small, central midfielder who needs the ball at his feet, and you look at, and there's a roster that's all 6'1" and above, and they're playing super direct, and that probably is unrealistic for you to think you can play there. So start to look for that. You can you can go to ID camps and get a feel for the coaches. Like if you're a sensitive kid and you don't want to go to a place where guys that scream or just like all over you, and then you might not thrive in that situation. So start looking at that. So junior year is when you need to start in Division II. Start kind of sending letters to coaches. Hey, I'm going to be at this event. Please come watch me play. Try and go to an ID camp with the schools that you're really serious about. And then senior year is where you generally make your decisions at Division II. Division I, you're making more on the boys' side. Junior year, beginning of senior year, and on the girls' side, unfortunately, it's a lot of times sophomore, junior year, you're making decisions. They're way ahead in recruiting.
Yeah, it's interesting because not only in soccer, but I think across a lot of different sports, people are diving down younger and younger and younger.
Yeah.
And it seems as if that's kind of tainted the game a little bit, where it's become so competitive and so cutthroat that I think people are missing the fun.
Yeah.
So when does, about what age, if you're talking to parents, when should fun, and you've got a kid who's starting to develop and showing some promise, around what age should you go from fun to competitive?
Well, I personally think that competitive is fun.
Yeah,
So
no,
for
I
the right
agree.
kid, yeah, okay. And I think one thing I think that there's a lot of talk now about multi-sport athletes. Like we need to go back to playing multiple sports, which I agree with on some. As a young kid, I think it's healthy. Like I'm talking like 7, 8, 9, 10. You should be playing multiple. Okay, but soccer is a different sport because the foot-eye coordination is different. There's not a lot of crossover. There's a crossover. If you play soccer, it crosses over to all the other sports because you can move your feet. I mean, look at all the basketball, football players that started out playing, Hakeem Olajuwon, and, grew up, it gives them nimble footwork. They can move. So that transfers. But the other way doesn't, like baseball, standing there hitting a baseball doesn't really translate to soccer at all. So I think soccer, you need to start focusing a little bit younger because if I can look at a player and say, you know what, they started playing late. They're just awkward. They're not smooth. They may be effective. They may even be good. Like when you play men's league, you can see guys that started playing, like fell in love with sport in their 20s. They're kind of just the way they play versus somebody who grew up with a game. So I think it's good to play multiple sports, but you need to put the time in with the ball to where you own it. So even at 10, 11, 12, if you're playing a few sports, say playing basketball and baseball and soccer, you need to make sure you're putting enough time in with soccer so your technical skills aren't falling behind. So,
yeah, it's really neat to hear that you can see who's kind of like quote unquote raw or a little underdeveloped.
Yeah.
Wow, that's some laser focus there, Coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with everything that you've accomplished in the game, I mean, you've been Coach of the Year over 6 times. 2002, you were Coach of the Nation, the National Coaches Award, and you guys, Sonoma State, won the championship that year.
Yeah.
Looking back at this point, what are you most proud of? What do you think your proudest moment or proudest thing that you've accomplished in the game?
Yeah. Well, the national championship was obviously amazing because at the time, it was 2002, and we had like $10,000 in scholarships. The teams we played were fully funded,
Wow.
with all international kids, and so that was amazing and incredible story. Just how we did it and everything came from behind, and 3 playoff games and everything. But I think the proudest thing the most thing I'm proud of is my relationship with my players. And I have my assistant coach right now, Ben Langwith, transferred in with the University of Kentucky, then transferred to us, and he's my assistant coach. He's one of my best friends, and I'm in touch with my so many of my alumni. Whenever I cruise around, next time I'm down in Ventura, I'm going to look you up for sure.
Oh, heck yeah, you have to.
But just the relationships I developed through the game from my players, my former players, and and guys call me for advice. I've been to law school graduations and weddings, a ton of weddings and all that. So that's something I really value, that. And then also relationships in the game. I have so many friends, the coaches at other colleges that you sit on the sidelines just, watching and BSing for days and days and days. And I have a lot of really good friends. So like I've received, we've had, obviously up here in Santa Rosa, we've had a lot of problem with fires.
Yeah.
So I've received so many texts and calls, making sure that we're okay and checking out on us. And, so it's just the relationships are a big part of it. And then just longevity to be able to, to survive and thrive at a place. I had options to move on to other schools. But this is my hometown and it's a great job. It's been a great place for me. So I'm proud of surviving this long. Knock on wood, let's keep it going.
Well, I hope you're getting paid more than $3,000 a year at this point.
Yeah.
But that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. I'm sure you've been recruited to go to D1 or bigger programs and maybe even the professional league. How come you stayed at Sonoma? Why did you just plant there? Why? Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, early on in my career, I was offered some top Division I assistant jobs when I was younger, and they just weren't right. Weren't right move, and I'm glad I stayed. And then I've had some Division I options where they kind of hunted me out, and it just wasn't right. There's one job I interviewed that I think would be a great place to live and everything. But at the time, my kids were like in their formative soccer years, and it was in the middle of nowhere. And I think if we would have done that, they wouldn't be Division I soccer players, or they would not the level they are, because they would have been kind of in the in the middle of nowhere, and there wasn't good club opportunities, and everything. And then I've spent a lot of time. I love my family, and we've traveled a lot. And I think D2, the recruiting model is not the same. If you're Division I, you're gone constantly. Division II, first of all, we're allowed a tryout, so we can bring a kid to try out. So whereas Division I, you can't do that. So that really helps, because I can go out and identify kids and have them come in for a visit and work out with the team. I get to see them, so it really helps in the recruiting process. So you don't have to be gone like every weekend all over if you're in Division I, it's a nationwide recruiting thing. So I want to spend more family time. And I grew up in this area. I played here. It just never made the move. So no regrets.
Yeah, none. I'd say you've had obviously a really, really great career, and it's your tenure at the helm has the longevity is really admirable. It's so great. Yeah. Where was the middle of nowhere?
San Luis Obispo, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which would have been an awesome place to live and everything. But the nearest high level club is Real SoCal, down northern. It would have been a couple hour commute to training and stuff. It just
So in all we've got the global pandemic, we've got COVID going on, you've got seniors, you've got juniors, sophomores, freshmen, incoming players. What are you telling your players to do right now? How are you helping them stay on top of things?
My current Sonoma State players? Yeah. Well, it's challenging, because basically last spring in March, we went virtual. So, they canceled classes and everything went online. So we dealt with that. We thought it was going to be short. We hoped it was going to be short-lived, but obviously it's not. So then the CSU, Cal State University System, made the decision in May to be online for the fall, late April even. So most of my guys didn't come in to Rohnert Park to Sonoma State. And they stayed home. And I, to be honest with you, I encourage it, because we're not able to do anything in person right now. We're trying to get where we might be able to do some conditioning, some things maybe late in November, end of October. But all of my new players, my new recruits, I encourage them to stay home and save money. And it's online, especially since we weren't going to be doing anything. So we have about 5 or 6 players in Rohnert Park. Everybody else is back home. So they're they have to follow their local policy. So some of them are able to play a little bit more than others. It depends, where they live. So, and then we have their classes are online. We have a Zoom on Tuesday, kind of like a touch base Zoom every Tuesday. Wednesdays, we have a workout with our strength and conditioning coach, a Zoom workout. And then on Thursdays, we bring in guest speakers, and my assistant's kind of treating it like he's working on his master's. So he's doing like a class where he's having him watch things and different things and assignments and discussions. And so we've got, 3 times a week we touch base with him. I reach out to him, individually, as often as I can, just, and also as a group, and just trying to keep them focused. And one thing this last year, we had our average team GPA was a 3.24. So we're really trying to push that, trying to make sure they're on top of their studies, and because we want to keep, first of all, we want everybody eligible, and then we want to keep the high GPA. So,
well, as a parent who's had 3 remarkable little football players, to all the parents out there that are, and families that are thinking about playing next level, what would you suggest to those parents? What anything at all? What's the smallest thing that you could tell them that would make a big difference for their sons or daughters that want to get to college?
Yeah, well, for depending on how young, if we're starting young, I just make it fun. We used to play in the backyard with the kids, and I would like overly celebrate goals and go crazy. We had made up all these fun games. I watched a lot of soccer on TV. My son Thomas, in 2002, the Brazilian national team with Ronaldo in the airport commercial. I mean, he wanted to watch that constantly. That was 98 because he's 96. He was 2 years old, saying Naldo. We put the commercial on back then, VHS tape. Just he loved so just making it fun, and then I think encouraging them to work on their own. Juggling, playing against a wall, playing with their friends, like, and we, most high level clubs, that's a requirement. They request that their players do that. So we always, with our kids, said, have you played on your own at all? And then, no, well, your club, your coach and your club says you're supposed to play 4 hours a week on your own. You need to get on it. I mean, if you don't want to fulfill the commitment to play on the class 1 team, and we can find a more local team for you where you won't have to do that, and that's, so just by kind of encouraging and demanding that. One thing, a common mistake I think that people make is like a lot of my colleagues, they don't want to push their kids into soccer. And right. My dad always said, I mean, that's pushing. Obviously, if you're forcing, that's bad. But if you're just gonna say, okay, my 5-year-old is I'm going to let him choose. I mean, there's plenty of entities, people that will push your kids into things right. Moving forward. Not all of them positive. So I think encouraging and pushing, you need to kind of encourage and push your kids to some point. You want to try and influence them to make good decisions and do healthy activities. When they get to a point, it's kind of like the difference between baptism and confirmation. You're confirmed, you have no choice in the matter. So when you're 4 or 5, you have no choice in the matter. Your parents are driving, you do it, and I mean, obviously if a kid absolutely hates it, you're not going to force them to do it. But then you get to a point where you decide you want to commit to the church, then you get baptized. So it's or the other way around, baptized then confirmation. Confirmation, you make a decision. So it's the same thing in soccer. When a kid gets 12, 13, 14, doesn't want to play soccer, okay, you're not going to force them to do it, but you want to. But because if they don't play enough, then it doesn't matter, because when they're 12, they're not good enough and they can't make it up, so they don't have a choice anyway. So you'd rather have them be proficient enough to continue on the path to play in college and decide not to, than say, God, I wish my parents would encourage me to play more when I was a kid. So.
Well, yeah, and I think what you're saying is you can guide, you can push, but as a parent, the kid has to want to do it, and
absolutely,
then you can encourage him. But yeah, there's that, and that's what we were talking about with the youth sports, is that you see all the videos that go viral and parents and fighting and this, that, and the other. But I love what you're saying as far as like, keep it fun, let the kid want it, be there to help guide them and push them, but ultimately they have to want it more than anyone else.
Yeah, and you can even do things like Johnny, you want to call your buddies and go out and play soccer, see if they want to go play soccer? And yeah, okay. And they're the one organized getting 4 or 5 of the kids out playing. That's, it's like accomplishing a couple things. So there's ways of doing it without making it. Hey, you're going to play in the park today.
Well, if you notice on Coach's background here, we've got the stadium Borussia Dortmund. And being the good German that you are a diehard fan. So I'm wondering, was your soul crushed when the best U.S. player, Christian Pulisic, was traded? How hard was that for you? Or did you?
Well, I mean, it was, it sucks, but we made so much money. We got him for free and sold him for like 80 million euros. I mean, so on one and the reality of in soccer, there's Dortmund in German soccer, you have Bayern Munich, and then Dortmund's next. But we know we bring in Dortmund has made a name for themselves by bringing in young players, developing them, and then selling them and making a ton of money when they're in their early 20s.
Good business.
So it's a business. And now we have Giovanni Reyna, Claudio Reyna's son, who's 17. He's just tearing it up. So we're going to do the same thing with him. We have Jadon Sancho. We have a lot of young players that are they come in and they know it's a good developing environment and they're going to move on. So I got to see Pulisic play like maybe 6 or 7 times with Dortmund. The highlight being I saw Dortmund at Real Madrid in the Champions League. And he was going against Marcelo, and then he got stripped, and then but he just kept going and going, and he had a phenomenal game. He just stuck with it, and Dortmund ended up winning and winning the group. It was an amazing experience.
That's so cool. Yeah, talk about mental toughness. You got Marcelo, one of the best backs in the world, and you got this young American kid, which, what I hear from a lot of different people in sports, especially outside the United States, they're like, you guys have too many options for sports.
Yeah.
It's
true. I mean, it's one of the reasons it's easy to say, the U.S. should be winning World Cups, but imagine if LeBron James had grown up playing soccer.
No.
Or players like that, or there's so many like that. So we're splitting between a bunch of sports, whereas in every other country, soccer is the number one sport without a doubt. So.
Well, Coach, it has been a true pleasure. Great to connect with you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the insight. Any final words, any final thoughts whatsoever? Yeah.
Just one quick thing on the sports psychology component. That's something that we work with a guy on campus. His name is Dr. Glenn Brasington. Yeah. And the reason I mentioned, I'll tell you a funny little story real quick. So he teaches at Stanford as well. He teaches like a sleep course. He worked with Stanford football, and he's worked with Giants players and track athletes. And so when I was younger as a coach, I always wanted to work with I thought we could use a sports psychologist for a couple of specific things. And there was really nobody around that. We didn't have a big budget. I wanted somebody to help us with goal setting. Mm-hmm. And then at the time, we had a mental block against playing Seattle Pacific. They were a nemesis. We could not beat them. And so 2002 in the summer, I'm at Sonoma State, and there's a guy looking into the tennis office, and hey, can I help you? And he said, yeah, I'm a new professor on campus. I play tennis, and I just was looking for tennis coaches. Oh, so who we started talking? Well, it turns out he's a sports psychologist. So, oh yeah, I'd really, I told him, I'd like to actually work with a sports psychologist. So we started working with him in 2002. It was year one national championship, and I could do a whole 2-hour talk on just that season, his impact, and some of the things that happened. It was insane. But so we did goal setting, process and outcome goals and process goals, which we do that every year. Outcome goals are everyone wants to win that championship, win the conference, score a bunch of goals, whatever. And then process goals, which are more important, is how you're going to accomplish that. And so we kind of work together as a group and make agreements. Okay, this is what we're going to do. So that year we worked with him. And then the other thing was we beating Seattle Pacific. So leading up to the week where we played Seattle Pacific, we did a bunch of mental imagery, and then the day before we actually played the last 3 minutes of the game. We're at 1-0, and then we had a referee blew the whistle, and then we all celebrated like we celebrated
Oh,
like we were going to do the next day. So the next day we knew we were going to win. So we beat them, and it was surreal because I their coach Cliff McGrath is still one of my best friends, and so I had practiced going over, shaking his hand, giving him a hug, and then shaking their players' hands, and then just going crazy with my team. So the game ends, and I literally just walked over, and it was like I wasn't even excited because I'd already done it.
yeah.
Shook his hand, gave him a hug, shook their hand, play, and then we just went crazy, and then it's just like, did I tell you this was gonna happen yesterday? Just like, and then that became kind of our theme, through the whole year. So the sports psychology component is massive. The mental imagery, recovering from mistakes, it's fantastic. So that was a little aside. We had so many things happen that year, like in the finals, with the sports, using mental imagery and then things that came true, and we were behind. We knew we were going to win. I mean, maybe it was naive and stupid, but it worked. So.
Hey, no, I don't think it was naive and stupid. I think like what you're saying is you're working on goals and you're providing structure for your players, and with anyone that's competitive, it's like you set a goal, you want to accomplish it, and a lot of times you'll do whatever you can to do that, and it's a lot easier in a team format because there's a term called social facilitation. In the late 1800s, they had a guy in a velodrome cycling, and then they put someone next to him, and all of a sudden they started trying harder and their times got better. And so when you're talking about like getting a group of young men or young women and you set goals and you got to back each other up, I mean, that's when magic starts happening, like you're talking about. I appreciate you sharing the value of sport.
And then also we decide on the goals ourselves, like the coaches and the players. We agree, and then we put it on a sheet of paper, laminate it, and everybody has it. And then there's times like in training, I'll run over, pull out the goal, like, hey, did we not agree that we were gonna da da da? And they're like, or the guys are fighting. It's like, hey, didn't we agree? Come on. It's like, okay, yeah, right, we did agree on that. So yeah.
Well, and a funny note, I wear this around the house. This was my my warm up back in the day, and I still
nice. Look at that.
I still have it. I found it in the
That's
truck
really
a couple
cool.
times. My wife, but I'm holding on to this thing because I'm so proud of it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
hey, send me your mailing address and I'll send you down an alumni shirt. We've got an alumni shirt that has the list of everybody that's ever played at Sonoma State on the back.
I'm in. I will.
And we got to get you up to an alumni game.
Yeah. Well, I've been talking with Maresca about that for years. I just like, I'll flame out in 5 minutes. I'm a little intimidated.
Yeah. Well, we do a old timers game before, and then the alumni game. And with the last few years, we've had like 50 people, a beer tent, food. It's pretty fun. It's pretty epic. So
That's great. Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time,
getting interrupted,
insight. Greatly appreciated, and best of luck in 2021, 2022. Hopefully,
all right,
on the pitch with the boys.
Yep, awesome grappler.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you.